In other words, art for art's sake. Yet in the hands of a filmmaker like Céline Sciamma, art finds a purpose, becoming a powerful force of cultural and societal change. Her stories are highly political, with issues like gender and patriarchy being strong themes and brilliantly crafted. But the way she tells her stories is no less fascinating than those stories themselves. Adding a spoiler alert here would be unnecessary, since even knowing the entire plots of the movies would still take nothing away from the viewing experience. Perhaps the most important tool she uses for her storytelling is color. It's not there just to enhance the visuals, but to tell something, and the most prominent of those colors is blue. Blue, being a cool color, signifies restriction, be it against lesbians, women, transgenders, or people of color. While warm colors in the film, especially red, signify freedom, comfort, and rebellion. We see blue on buildings, doors, windows, rocks, and trains. In the movie Girlhood, containing themes of patriarchy and race, we see restricted spaces in blue, like the protagonist's abusive brother's room, and non-restricted spaces in warm colors, like the hotel's room or this open space where she and her bold and independent friends hang out. This shot, where the protagonist is seen coming from a warmly lit area to a blue lit one, is symbolic in the same way. Or this shot, where she leaves the outside world and enters the lift of the hotel, her comfort space where she'll hang out with her friends. Or this, where she's entering her boyfriend's home that appears warm from the outside, but the same old blue is seen inside, which makes more sense when he proposes to marry her and keep her as his housewife, to her surprise, appearances being deceptive here. In Portrait of a Lady on Fire, we see Eloise, a lesbian aristocrat who's going to be wed off to a male, in blue colors, until Marianne, the independent painter who is also lesbian, seen in rusty red, comes into her sad life, makes her shed the blue, and we now see Eloise in green, signifying a sort of rebirth. As their mutual love progresses, Marianne sees visions of Eloise in white, signifying their inevitable separation and a kind of death. In the movie Tomboy, that depicts the struggles of a transgender boy, colors tell a different story. We see the child in blue first, blue signifying restriction again, and as the movie progresses, we see glimpses of red, which can be seen as a secret expression of the child's identity. When forced by their mom to tell their friends they're a girl, we see the protagonist in blue again, until later in the film where the character just throws away the blue and openly embraces the red, feeling no need to hide their true self. Sciamma's use of colors is part of a broader attempt of visual storytelling. Consider this scene, for instance. A powerful message of feminism told without a word being said. Don't wait for the men. Don't look at them. Just jump into this vast ocean around you and grab what's yours to take. Further in the movie, we see more of Marianne and fire, while Eloise is shown more often with water. Fire represents freedom, a force that melts shackles, while water represents restriction, something that pulls you in. This scene in the movie Water Lilies has another visual cue. The line we see between them refers to the divide between these two characters. Watch how this line slowly fades away after the conversation begins and they start coming closer. Purposeful camera work like this is abundant in Sciamma's films. One notable use of camera being internal shots and external shots. Internal shots are point-of-view shots that align with a character's optical vision, while external shots are more objective, showing things not from a character's point of view and therefore not aligning with a character's optical vision. In Portrait of a Lady on Fire, we see these internal shots. It's the first time they're meeting, and these point-of-view shots showing Eloise from the back tell how Marianne, being a stranger, knows nothing about her at this point. Marianne paints two portraits of Eloise in the movie. The first one is painted secretly to be sent to Eloise's suitor, and Marianne paints her adopting a male gaze. When Eloise finally sees the portrait and objects to it, saying it has no presence, she paints a second portrait, not in secret, not with a male gaze, but adopting her own female gaze, loaded with erotic desire for her and painted as if the painting is just too personal for her. Watch how the shots where she paints the first portrait are external objective shots not aligning with her point of view, and how the shots where she paints the second one are internal subjective shots, aligning directly with her point of view. But sometimes Sciamma tries to turn things around. Like in this scene where Marianne enters the room for the first time. We get a shot of her face, and the next shot looks like an internal subjective shot, as if her eyes are panning across this room, looking at things. But it's not, because seconds later we see Marianne walking into the shot. So who's looking? Whose point of view is this? Sciamma's films often feature external shots like this filmed as internal shots. A shot looking like a character's point of view shot, but then the character walking into the shot. Marianne sees a portrait here, the next shot looks like an internal shot, and then Marianne walks into it. But sometimes internal shots are filmed as being external. As in this scene, we get a shot of Marianne looking at something, and then the next shot looks like an internal shot from Marianne's point of view. But then she walks into it. However, it remains an internal shot nonetheless, because it's her vision, her fear of losing the woman she loves. Sciamma also makes very conscious decisions regarding camera tracking. There are shots where the camera tracks a character all the way with zero cuts, and then there are shots that are the opposite, like this. Or this, where Marianne calls Eloise to look at the painting.
Avec moi.
The camera stays still and feels no need to track her. The sound of her footsteps is enough to tell she is coming. The same happens here. We get a shot of the protagonist looking outside, cut to a shot of a girl waiting outside. The character decides to join her, but the camera again refuses to track them. However, we know they are coming through the sound of the footsteps. In Portrait of a Lady on Fire, characters take frames entirely, like we don't even see many over-the-shoulder shots that are so common in other movies. For instance, this scene, there is no shot that shows all three of them together in one frame. Instead, each character is shown separately, with cuts to different characters based on our anticipations and their reactions. A perfect way of showing equality between three women belonging to three different classes in society. The films also feature jump cuts in disguise, in the same way as Sciamma plays with internal and external shots. We see Marianne looks at the stool, cut to a shot featuring the stool. The cut doesn't look like a jump cut, but certainly is, because it cuts to a time further in the future, since Marianne walks into the shot in green, not in the red she was wearing seconds ago in the film. In these films, importance is given not only to the things seen on the screen. A lot of things happen off-screen in the films that we are made aware of. Marianne is often shown in her room where fire keeps burning in the fireplace. Even if the fire is not always shown, we are made acutely aware of its presence through the crackling sounds coming from the off-screen. In this instructional scene from the opening, we don't get to see Marianne until 30 seconds.
La silhouette.
She is just heard giving instructions from the off-screen.
N'allez pas trop vite. Mes mains.
In this conversational scene from Girlhood, we don't even see who she's talking to. We just hear the voice of the woman from the off-screen throughout the entire conversation. And in the final shot of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, the orchestra is playing Vivaldi's Summer. But the orchestra is never seen on the screen. We just hear the music, while the camera stays fixated on Eloise's face and just refuses to cut. The ends of Sciamma's movies are often reversed beginnings of those movies. When Water Lilies begins, we see this character yearning to be in that pool, and in the end we see her there floating. In Petite Maman's opening, we see the disconnect between the girl and her mom, and in the end we see them together, bonding. Girlhood has this scene in the beginning, where Miriam walks into her own apartment where she doesn't feel comfortable. And in the end we see her stopping herself from going there and crying. We see the symbolic blue looming in the background and a profile shot showing her resolve, not to fear anymore. And finally, in the ending of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Eloise and Marianne are shown wearing the opposite kinds of colors they wore in the beginning, with Eloise now in warm colors and Marianne in blue, as if they've both colored each other and made their own.